welcome to another episode of Viral Culture. My name is Zachariah Chabaya, and today I'm joined by Thais Monroe. We're just going to be talking a little bit about a lot of the work she's done, some of the Black Lives Matter movement, kind of that side of things, just so you know where the discussion is going. But just to start out, how about you introduce yourself a little bit, Thais?
My name is Thais Monroe. I am a Columbia College alum now. That's so weird to say. My major is education. Oh, no, sorry, scratch that. My major is English with an emphasis in creative writing, and my minor is secondary education. I'm the first graduate of the Grow Your Own program here in Columbia, Missouri. And and I like to use the work that I've done and the work that I want to do to kind of help it influence my educational career, my teaching career, even though it hasn't officially started yet.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's great. So what's that project you mentioned? Grow Your Own or something?
Grow Your Own. So it's a program that was implemented. So at first, like a while ago, it was called the Minority Internship Program. And so while I was like a sophomore, about to be a junior in high school, they brought the program back. And at first it was just an internship. And then by the time, so there's like two separate pieces, I should make that clear. So there's the internship, and then there's the scholarship side of things. And basically you work the internship, you do the internship, and you get to co-teach a summer school class. So that's really fun. So I've been doing that for a while. And then after that, so now I know the process is you get recommended on to apply to the scholarship, and then you have an interview. But because I was amongst a group of people who the scholarship wasn't, it was new. So I like to say the scholarship was more like offered to me. And then after that, we all, like, there's a committee, and then we have a scholarship supervisor. So me and my scholarship supervisor worked very, very closely together just because I'm the first person. So they call me the trailblazer, but that's really like nice to say that we didn't know what we didn't know. So there was like, when there's a first kink, I got all the first kinks to work out, and I got all the we didn't think about that, like we have to go back to the drawing board. All the aha moments happen with me, and there are still some now that I'm the first graduate. So there's like a lot of like, how does this look for her? So, but yeah, so that's kind of like my role with it. But basically you go to college for free. And I'm supposed to say the CPS Foundation, because apparently it's illegal for CPS to actually pay for people to go to college. But yeah, I didn't know that. So like this whole time I was like, yeah, CPS pay for me to go to college. They were like, no, stop saying that. And I was like, okay. But, so I think the CPS Foundation gives you a scholarship, and it's like basically a community thing. Like a lot of people in the community like help get you resources and stuff, so you can go to college for free. And then you give your 4 years of undergrad, you get to teach for CPS after that. So it's like a scholarship with a job. It's really great.
Wow, you pretty much got that all figured out, because everyone's always like, once they graduate, trying to figure out, where do I get my first job and all that stuff, but you have it lined up.
It's like, yeah, that's the silver lining. It definitely, though, when you first get it, so like everybody's main concern when I first got it was like, because you sign a contract. So they're like, are you sure you want to do this? And you're like 18, like, yeah, I'm gonna be a teacher. You gotta stick with, you kind of gotta stick with that after that. But I like to say I get to, just because I knew that's what I wanted to do. And that's why the internship piece is also so important, because summer school is no joke. I'm not trying to make it seem like it's like this battlefield or anything, but I did summer school, middle school, and like summer school, elementary school, I feel like it's, fun, because you get to see your friends, not a lot of stress. Summer school, middle school, nobody really wants to be there because, especially when you get 7th, 8th grade, they're like, why are we doing this? Have to do something. So it really helps you like figure out if this is really what you want to do. And I think the people who go through the process with you as far as like on the interview side, the committee, they are very supportive of everyone's decisions, like whether they want to keep going or if they don't. And they also like the other day, my best friend, she was gonna do it and she ended up not doing it. She ended up not getting it, but she wanted to be an event planner and she kind of knew that, but it's like cool because she got to help plan my scholarship supervisors, her daughter's grad party. So it was like everybody's very supportive of the community and the people that are coming through or they get introduced to through it, which I think is a good idea. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent now. I get really hyped about the program because it's so cool.
No, that's great. That's I'm here for it. I'm literally here for it. So, so does that mean you're from Colombia then? Like you?
I like to say Memphis, Colombia. I moved away from Colombia when I was like almost 2, and I lived in Memphis for my entire life until like 8th grade. And so I moved back here in 8th grade and I haven't been here ever since. So like I say, half and half.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Which one do you, I mean, this will probably, you're a little bit biased probably, but like, which do you prefer? Like, did you like Memphis or do you like Colombia?
I refer to Memphis as home. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love when I say, like, I tell people like, oh yeah, I got to go back home this summer. Like I'm talking about Memphis. I try every summer. Yeah.
Is that like a goal, like to move down there eventually, or you just?
No, I'm not sure where I want to end up actually. I know that I know what I want to do for these next 4 years. I have a lot of goals for those, but besides that, I don't really know what I want to do.
Well, I mean, everyone, just so you know, everyone's faking it till they make it. You know,
yeah. I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm a little bit ahead of you, like school and like life-wise, but everyone's faking it as I'm learning. No one is really.
Nobody has it all figured out. But I genuinely don't know where I want to. I know where if I move out of Colombia, I do want to move somewhere where the educational system, the values of the education system there are like the school districts there match with my values, which I really found here. So like this movement, so this is a big thing for me. It's like a movement towards creating life-ready individuals and not college-bound individuals. That's a very big deal to me. And it's a very big, that's a statement though, right? Like that's that, because then you have to make sure everybody's committed to helping everybody with their post-secondary journeys, period. Like regardless of what that is. And that's a very big anchor little nugget for me. And also a commitment to like teaching. I call it teaching for liberation, but teaching students about themselves and about one another in a way that's authentic. I feel like as far as like me voicing that's going to be a big part of my teaching style that has been very accepted, and people have really talked to me and tried to help me hone that in as far as like how I want to teach. And there's like a really big debate right now in like the media is like whether or not you should teach like critical race theory. And like I don't want to go to a district where that's not, like, to me that's not a debate, because that's essentially asking, do like BIPOC kids get to learn about themselves? And that's like problematic, because everybody deserves to learn about themselves. And critical race theory is a big part of like, especially Black kids in America learning about themselves. So that's like my big deal about like whether I want to move or not, is because I know that there are certain things I'll be able to teach here that, like, for example, if I move to Texas, I don't know that that would be, supported all the way. As far as like by school district officials as a whole. Like I know, because I follow a lot of teachers on TikTok. So I know there are teachers in Texas who are obviously very supportive of this theory. But I mean, like, am I gonna have district backing on certain things? It's very important to me.
So you touched on a little bit of gems there. I don't know if you can go back. I kind of missed it, but you said educating not for college bound. What was it? How did you phrase it?
Creating life-ready students. So creating students or helping students become individuals who are ready for any path post-secondary, and not just creating college-bound students. Because
sorry, go ahead.
I think that when you start talking about when you start getting like deeper into education and a lot of topics, as far as if you take me and my brother, for example, right? So my brother will have really benefited from somebody grabbing him and being like, hey, like, let's talk about things that you're good at that you could possibly do after this is over, right? But instead it was like, we're gonna go all the way back to freshman year. So he had an injury. He played football. He was really good. And then he got an injury. And then after his injury, that was kind of like it. And I was like, well, like, he's still gonna have to have a life after, like, whether the injury happened his freshman year, whether the injury happened in his 30s, it didn't matter, right? Like, football is not a continuous thing. Like, it's not healthy to continue to play that sport after a while. So I think, like, if you take two individuals like us I knew I'm gonna have to do well in school because I want to be a teacher. And before I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be a lawyer. I've only ever wanted to be two things. So before I wanted to be a teacher, I wanted to be a lawyer, but both of those I knew you have to do well in high school because you have to go to college for these things. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was more like okay, I got it. These are like stepping stones, right? Like, I have to do these things because this is my end goal and that's where I want to be. But for somebody like him who was kind of just like, I'm here because, you kind of got to go to school, and which is fine. Everybody's not going to like school, but that a benefit within his educational career would have been to have somebody there who was helping him figure out the path he wanted after high school. Mm. Because it really feels like sometimes, like, either you're going to college or you're not. And it's like, if you're not going to college, where, we might push you over here. And then that's pretty much it.
So you feel like what you're saying, if I'm understanding, you're saying the education system, like, in your point of view, like, it does little to prepare people who aren't going to college for life outside of college, to where it's almost like setting you up for failure. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really have the life skills, like you don't realize that there's other options outside of college, because college is not the be all end all, like, you see several people go to college, not use the degree, end up regretting, there's like several like stepping stones and things that could go down in that aspect as well, to where you can consider, some people are considered failures when they excel in very like specific things, but just because they don't fall within, I guess, the norm of pass exams, do this, and then you'll be good for college, you're considered a failure. But you're saying there's more to education than just like grading and like, like the goodness of it.
Yeah, I always like to say college isn't for everybody, right? But education is for everyone. So as long as you're like, for example, I don't know what a mechanic has to do to become a mechanic, right? But it's more education than just knowing cars. Like knowing cars gets you in that door, but being able to like one, start a business, that's a different piece of education. I don't have that piece of education, but a mechanic does. And there are multiple ways to gain education on how to run a business, right? That you don't need to go, especially to a 4-year college to do. But if you're taking somebody who's like, man, and when I finish this, I want to work on cars. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a mechanic. Why would we send that kid who has like, you know, this natural knowledge of vehicles? I'm not going to tell you to go to school for 4 years if the piece that you need to help you is the business piece. That's not a valuable use of your time. That's gonna, me telling you to go to school for 4 years is gonna set you back on, you know, the things you need to do.
So when did you get to like this conclusion? Because I mean, obviously, you know, you don't really think about this as the average student. You know, you're programmed almost to think, I just got to get through school. I got to get through college. I got to do this kind of thing. So what was kind of like that moment for you when you sort of realized that this is what the system was and it needed to change? Or did you see it changing? Or, you know, did you have like a moment like that kind of like was like, that's not the way I want this to be?
Yeah, so when the first summer I taught summer, so like 2 things happened, right? So sophomore year, the summer after freshman year, actually, I go to this camp. It's called In Town. It's like a social justice camp, essentially. I think that's the best way I can. So you don't have like your phone. You're with people that you don't know, or at least I was with people I didn't know, because it was in St. Louis. I didn't know anybody in St. Louis at the time. So I go to this camp, right, and I'm learning all these. I'm learning because I would think when I moved here, there are a lot of things I've observed about the world, right, but I hadn't yet put names to things. So like, especially when you come from a place like Memphis is very rich in culture. So when I moved to Columbia, Missouri, out of all places, I'm like, there are so many white people here. That was like my first thought. Like, and I'm used to going to school with Latinx kids, with Arab kids mostly, with and Black kids. That was it. I think I remember having like 2 white peers distinctly at my middle school before I moved here. So then I moved here and they're like, we're gonna put you in Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And I remember, this is the first thing I remember. I remember people being so shocked that I knew things when I moved here. Because whatever perception they had of like like big city kids, like not a lot of people had good ones. So I remember them being like, oh, you took pre-algebra already, you should be in algebra. And I remember being in algebra and struggling so bad that I retook pre-algebra just so I didn't have to do it in 8th grade anymore. But it's because like, one, I'm surrounded by, there are like maybe 3 people of color in this class. And the other 2 kids of color in this class, they've been in advanced math for forever. Like, I don't do advanced math. I didn't know I was doing something different at all until I moved here. So, or in honors English, I remember when I moved here, people come, one, it was like a thing that I was in honors English, and 2, it was like my accent was very thick. So in this class, I'm not talking because I sound way different than these kids. And that's the first time I realized I like had an accent, but it's also the first time I realized things were really different. Like, and not because like when I get here, I'm like immediately feeling different from everyone else. It's like some of my teachers are treating me differently than everyone else. And like some of my teachers are like questioning my ability on things. And I was not used to that at all. And so moving here was definitely like a cultural cultural reset for me, as far as like putting names to things. Because right, I feel like as Black kids, especially Black kids in America, you know what racism is. Like, you kind of have to know what racism is. But I will say when I moved here, very early, I realized the various ways that like racism manifested itself and misogyny manifested itself in these very bold ways. But I think what I've learned over time is more, I'm a language person. I've always loved language, so my major is English, but I'm a language person. So the more I realized, like, I probably should have the language for these things by now. So that was like the caveat for me. Like, you know racism when you feel racism. Like, you know a microaggression when you're experiencing a microaggression. But I don't know the word microaggression freshman year of high school. I didn't know this. I knew racism, but even this phrase manifested itself. That's a phrase that I needed to have that I didn't have. And when you have kids, so when you have a kid like me, right, I'm gonna learn these things over time. But these are also things that need to be being taught to me so that I can advocate for myself effectively, and I can tell my teacher when they are not being allies to me, when they are saying microaggressive things, because that's what happened. I encountered a teacher, right, who she had a lot of like, she said a lot of microaggressive things to me and to the three other Black kids in our class, in our honors English class my freshman year. And I remember just like the way I handled it was like avoidance. So I just wouldn't go to class. I would just go to my principal's office every day. That's the problem. You should be in class, and I should have the language to say, yeah, what you said in class today was a microaggression, right? Instead, I'm like taking it far, like, yeah, I think you're racist, and even though I can feel like that, and I may feel like that forever, the way to have that conversation in a way that I know my emotions will be validated and that what I'm saying will be validated is to have the language. So I have a build up to that, right? So instead of saying you're racist, I need to say, you said this on this day, that was a microaggressive comment. You said this on this day, this was a microaggressive comment, which will lead me to believe that you are racist. And then we can have that discussion, because when you approach something that way, it's not accusatory, right? Like, I'm telling you this, and the evidence that you're giving me is saying this to me. And that's how we will have a productive exchange, whether it ends up being, she's not going to change, you need to remove me from her class, or, well, Tyus, I didn't realize what I was saying. I apologize for that. Let me change this behavior. So I think that that's why teaching students authentically about themselves is very important, because is it kind of like, for lack of a better term, BS, that like you have to approach things this way, that you have to like dial back your emotion when somebody else has approached the situation emotionally? Yes, it is. But do you also need to teach your kids these things? Like, if you do approach this way, this is what will happen. And because of this history of stereotyping you and all of these other things, that you won't be heard. So it's I feel like a lot of our kids don't get to I don't want to say play the game, but it is like playing the game, because this is also, when you're talking about Black students, this is also teaching them to be life ready, right? This is the first time it was not the first time that I encountered someone who is a teacher. In college, it was a professor. It's not the first time I will have to encounter someone like this or that. And in college, it was multiple times. So, but I can't like lash out at my professor because I have a goal, I have a job to do at school, but I do need to have the tools so that I'm ensuring that I'm being treated equitable in a classroom. And that's that difference between like being treated equally, like equality and equity. I tell my sister all the time, you're going to say, if somebody says something to you and you approach a situation because you need someone to be equitable, they may not like that, and that is fine. But you will have to put yourself, you will be in situations where you have to articulate clearly the things that you deserve. And you deserve to I deserve to go to class and not have my professor say racist things. So I need the language for that though. And that professor cannot like that, but that professor won't make me uncomfortable again. And that professor will grade me fairly. And I will get what I deserve in that class. Whether we like each other or not, it's neither here nor there to me, you know? Mm-hmm. And whether that professor is uncomfortable or not, really is on them. Their emotions are their business. But yeah, I think that's what I had to learn was that. And I think this is when like I slowly started, like hindsight is 2020, because everybody kept telling me I was going to be a teacher. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a lawyer. But I think that's when I really started thinking about how a lot of students from marginalized communities do not have the language that we need to articulate the things that we're experiencing. Because we need to learn early that these things have names. And as soon as you drop the names, like as soon as I'm saying microaggression, everybody's demeanor is going to change. As soon as I'm saying racist, as soon as I'm saying misogyny, misogynoir, as soon as I'm saying the names to these things, because people know what you mean. Mm-hmm. People know what you mean, and behaviors will change. Whether they're uncomfortable changes for you to make, like I said, your emotions are your business. You deal with those, but you will treat me fairly. And that's how I feel about my students. You will treat them with equity because that's what they deserve.
So
question, that was such a long response. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. No, I liked everything you were delving into there. So I have a question. So you earlier you mentioned like the critical race theory and those things like that. And I'm in an education program right now, so I'm actually familiar with the language, things like that, what you're saying there too. Do you feel like you mentioned that you're going to have difficulty, you don't want to move to like an area that doesn't match your values, things like that. And you would assume that that's like an educational value, you know what I mean? That's not like going to be something that matches your value, like you have to search hard to find that value kind of thing. Do you feel like, first of all, explain the critical race theory just for, probably in better language, how to kind of narrow that down in layman's terms, but also like, if you could also dabble into a little bit of how you feel the education system kind of represents, I guess you would say the Black experience, because that's what the critical race kind of, or does it the acknowledgement of like American history and things like that? That's kind of a loaded question, but you can answer that.
So critical race theory, as I understand it, is basically, I just put up my notes on this, but basically it's basically us examining how the system of racism and, well, I think really white supremacy will be best. It's like how white supremacy influences everything. So how it influences our laws, how it influences our educational system, how it influences how marginalized people interact with one another and the larger world around us. I think is like my understanding of it. Okay, that's first. Second, what was the second part of this question?
Like, do you feel that, like, how do you feel like the US education system has kind of handled like this whole thing? Because I know you're speaking kind of like, I don't know if this will put you like damage your job or position. So if you feel like that's the case, then yeah, we don't have to go there. But like, do you feel like the education system, I guess a better way to shape it would be, is it moving in a direction where people are more willing to accept that? Or, like with the age of, I think of, like the way information is readily available, right? So I think back to like my experience when so I'm from Zimbabwe. I don't think I mentioned that before. So
Okay.
when I went to school, the only research we would get really was the books we had, right? So what I was told and taught was from the textbook. That's all I knew. That's what it was. Like there was no other like place I could go like research. Of course I could have watched movies, but it wasn't accessible like on my phone or something. But with when you think of like today, you can get taught one thing in class, go back, research it yourself, Google it, and find like completely different perspective. Like, is this what happened? Like, is this really how this played out? Like, you have all these other perspectives and sources and things like that.
Yeah.
So do you feel that that's the way education is going to go? Or do you feel like these like laws that are now like repressing or like failing to acknowledge things like critical race theory are getting put into place because this information is now out there? Like, how do you think this is going, kind of thing?
I think like, why are we fighting this? Like, why right now in 2021, why are we fighting this? This is not a fight, right? Like you said, I shouldn't have to look. I shouldn't have to look and examine a district and being like, are they gonna allow me to teach critical race theory? That's ridiculous. Like, it's a thing, it's happening. Our kids deserve to learn about it because it's going to affect their everyday lives. I talked about how life-ready students. Black students cannot be ready for life if they do not know about critical race theory. They just can't. They can't. So to me, it's like, yeah, I think it's moving backwards. And I'm also like, it's like honestly a slap in the face to our students because it's another thing that communicates to them that they don't matter and that their stories don't matter. And that, somebody told me one time in school, I had to report a professor for something. And somebody told me, and I told this professor who was helping me out, I was like, I just question a lot of times if what happened in these classrooms, like if it really happened, am I blowing this out of proportion? Am I not being fair? Like all these things that this person wasn't thinking about when they did what they did, right? But she told me, she was like, this is another way that any oppression really manifests itself. It makes the person who is marginalized, it makes the person who's being oppressed feel like this isn't actually happening. And I would never want, because what we're talking about now, we're talking about mass, like a multitude of children feeling like you have a teacher who's going to try to create this perception of the world. And then you're going to have a child in class, a student in class who's feeling like, okay, so is my experience, am I like thinking about this wrong? Are the things that are happening to me, to people who look like me, to people around me, am I thinking about this wrong? Like maybe we do need to XYZ. And it's like, no, you're not. These things are happening. And I think to deny the critical race theory in the classroom would be to deny that these realities are happening. And if you just think about the implication of that alone, what that will do to mental health, what that can do to physical health and emotional well-being, like that's not okay. And this is a thing that people have tried to make a political issue, but it's not. If we have I think as teachers and as educators, we have a moral responsibility to our students. And to me, it would be completely immoral to deny them the opportunity and the duty we have to them to fully educate themselves. That is our job. So we will be doing a terrible job and a terrible disservice to them and to ourselves if we don't get to teach that. And then it's also like, is anybody thinking about educators from marginalized communities? Like, I cannot in good standing stand in front of a classroom and give my students a watered down, will continue, because this is why this is a thing, because people want to continue to do what they're doing, which is giving this one-sided, really this white-sided version of history. Mm-hmm. History did not start, white people are not the only people in history, right? History, different people have different histories. And different people histories start in different places. And we have to honor that. And we have to respect that. And we also have to come to terms with the fact that, especially in America, white supremacy has done damage. And we have to examine that, because it's ridiculous how, so I love TikTok, right? So, session. But there are so many students, right? I see on TikTok who our students are learning correct history from an app. Like, are we really going to keep debating critical race theory? Like, I think we all just need to come to terms with these things happen, and they have been, oppression reforms itself. That's what I like to say. So a lot of forms of oppression have been reformed, and we need to talk about it, because our students who, all non-white students, need to know how these systems are going to be affecting them. And we need to become advocates and allies so that we can be sure that, one, some of our students get to live life, quite frankly, and two, they're actually life ready. This is a part of their human experience, and we shouldn't deny them. We shouldn't deny educating them about their experiences as human beings and the things that affect that.
No, I think you touched on a lot of good points there. And I think a lot of the like rhetoric that I see because I'm actually writing a paper about something along these lines too, for one of my curriculum design classes. So the thing was, a lot of the things, research I was seeing, when someone, I don't know if you're familiar with, so Harold Rugg was like a theorist, right? And he did a lot about social studies and things like that. And his goal kind of was to like inform, people about the history of America, and like kind of like you're saying, like the white supremacy side of it, right? And what it was labeled as was un-American, basically like anti-American. You know what I mean? Like it was basically like basically saying people should feel bad for being American, kind of like that type of rhetoric. So in my mind, when I'm looking at that, I kind of think because I was kind of like really huge on history as well. So I kind of liked history when I was in high school and things like that. And I think of Germany, right? Like, so you think of a country like Germany, and everyone knows what the Nazis did, right? And how bad.
Yeah.
You don't see that being like erased from their history, right? Like they study it and they acknowledge it and see like, so we don't do that again. Like, like, so people are aware of it. It's kind of like acknowledgement. And I think it helps people realize that this happened. Whereas calling this anti-American, in my opinion, kind of seems like denial, of course, first of all. And like it stops the progress of moving forward and moving kind of past it, right? Because you haven't acknowledged the problem to begin with, or that this even happened, or at least wanting to talk about it anymore because you don't want the future generation to be aware of what happened. So I think that this kind of leads into kind of like what I was hoping to be the second part of our discussion, where it's like leading towards like the Black Lives Matter movement, right? So things like that, and like for example, with George Floyd, a lot of people like eyes were open in that moment, right? And they were like, what, racism is still a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was weird for, for people like who live it, like you said, like, it is
Yeah.
an experience. It was weird to see that. Of course it's great because then people are like, this is actually an issue. And, that's where all the marches and things like that started happening. But I think that also kind of rolls back into the education piece, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
because this hasn't been acknowledged, a lot of people, or at least it's kind of painted as like it happened back then, it's not a thing now kind of thing. So I think that educational piece missing creates this void to where like it creates a lack of acknowledgement, and people don't think that this is a thing. People just think people are complaining, right? Um,
Yeah.
how do you kind of feel that? First of all, I want you to mention about your, because I heard you were heavily involved in the
Yeah.
BLM in Colombia, and I want to learn all about that. But like, do you feel that there is a connection there, or am I kind of just like reaching a little bit? Like, do you agree with that?
No, I definitely, so I believe everything is connected. That's just a thing for me, but it's definitely connected when people, because so when I say things like oppression is reformed, right? So like, there's no reason in because if you think about how long this country as we know it has been this country as we know it, racism, xenophobia, stuff like that has always been embedded in the history of this country. And I think people's denial of it comes from accountability is hard. Just as human beings, accountability is hard. But two, the deeper issue for me is that it's still happening. So when you talk about things like slavery parallel the penal system, right? Like our penal system is the parallels it has to slavery, they're undeniable. When you take things like the police and you trace them back to their origins and to their roots, we see in America, these things have just been reformed over and over and over again. And then, so when people are like, oh, we just need a reform, these are the reform versions of these things, whether we want to accept that or not, that's your business. But we are seeing these things in their recreation. So that's that. But I don't think you're reaching. I think that when you say to me, so when because people said that all summer to me, all summer 2020, they were saying, I just had no idea these things were this bad and these things were going on. And like, when you look like us, you're thinking, where have you been? Like, these things never went away. But it's because one big thing happens and then we let it go. And then another big thing. So like the summer, multiple big things happen and these people are dying, and it's like back to back to back to back to back. And people don't understand that when you live in certain communities, you're seeing these things happen all the time and they don't make the news because this is a norm. And this has been a norm in Black communities, in marginalized communities and spaces for forever. Like, this is not new. And if a history teacher took longer than February to acknowledge that these things weren't new and acknowledge accurately that these things weren't new, I wouldn't have had to say on my social media, please stop asking me to explain these things to you, because we've had to unlearn, reteach ourselves. There's not a person who sat me down and was like, all these things you learned about history were wrong. No, I know these things I'm learning about history are wrong because I'm living the accuracy. I'm living what is accurate. So but someone needs to tell you that they're wrong, because especially when you have like white kids who are like, I didn't know this was happening. Like, what do I do? What do I do? When I think people are like, well, like, I saw this video of this lady, she was crying and she was like, well, I just don't want my son to learn about that. And it's like, yeah, now I don't want to have to teach my kid that when they encounter the police, they need to go through this 24-step manual or they might not survive. If my kid's old enough to live that, and the age that we have to teach our kids this is getting younger and younger. So if my kids are old enough to live that, your kids are old enough to get a glimpse into our reality. But that's what happens. It's like, you don't want your kid to learn this because then you'll have to be accountable. Because that's what happens when kids start, people treat children like they just don't know things. Because that's what happens when you open up this one can of worms to a kid, they're gonna start asking questions. And those questions might get uncomfortable for you. And you need to put your parent pants on and you need to explain these things to them. Or you need to get real with yourself. Because I think that's what's happening with this is like, there's like a lot of parents who don't want to be real with themselves. Because some of these grades, when we're talking about teaching these things, some of these grades are like really young. And they're young at a point where it's like certain things have been learned that it's not too late to unlearn. But other things they haven't learned yet. And so it's like when you put them on the path to learning things in their accuracy and seeing their peers as human beings, because some of them are still at the age where the humanity of their counterparts has not been super decreased yet. So it's like, as students start seeing each other's humanity, they're gonna have questions, and the adults, the people in their lives who have seen a little bit of the world, we gotta start being accountable, and we gotta start having those uncomfortable conversations. And when you're talking to parents and guardians and people's like from marginalized communities, these are awkward and sad, and in some houses they're looked at as like milestone conversations that are happening, and they've been happening for generations. And even within a conversation with, what do you do when you encounter the police? How do you act when you're walking down the street? That's passing down trauma. And all we're asking you to pass down to your kid is information, is knowledge. You should be so lucky that that's all you have to pass down to your kid. Because we gotta teach you, it's like we gotta teach our kids our pain so that they can survive. But then we also have to deal with the stigma that them healing from the pain that they've been taught and that they've experiences that go on. These are like loaded things. These are like difficult and delicate conversations and situations that we have consistently had to have. So no, it's not reaching, it's accurate. That's accurate. If somebody had learned this, then I wouldn't be in college having to teach tenured professors that what they're saying is not okay. And I wouldn't have to be explaining why they probably don't even know what they're doing is a microaggression. Because that is not my job. As a student, that's not my job. And that's what happened. And that's what was happening in high school. It's not why am I senior year teaching kids who Emmett Till is? That's ridiculous. Like, and that's also not my job. And now I have to come to school and I have to work double time. Nobody wants to do that. So if you got to have a little awkwardness with your kid so that my kid can go to school, my theoretical kid, I don't have a kid. I don't know why I keep saying it. So my kid doesn't have to go to school and be uncomfortable and do extra emotional work and then come home. I have to dissect all the work that they have to do for the day and then go back to school and do it over again. And people don't understand that in times of where this is like heightened, right? So in times like the summer, you got kids just coming off of Zoom school. They don't know what they're doing. Then they got to turn around. They're either going to school now. So in August, because in August, this still wasn't over, contrary to what a lot of counterparts believe. Like when I went back to school, it was like everything hit a reset and everybody had forgotten. And I was like, we still haven't gotten the Breonna Taylor verdict. And we still hadn't gotten the George Floyd verdict. And I don't even know what's happened with Ahmaud Arbery right now. These are all things I'm going through, thoughts I'm having in my senior year of college. And then I got people asking me, how are you? Are you okay? well, you're back at school now, which is not helpful because I went to a PWI. So it's not helpful. It's not a helpful space. And it will be much more productive and much more helpful to me if the people whose job it is to educate did that at all levels, right?
So first of all, I mean, I know what it means, predominant PWI, predominant White institute.
Right
Just
institution, yeah.
it is like wondering what that is. Also, I think kind of like, first of all, I think I agree with what you just said. And I think it also kind of boils down to the education piece again, right? It all comes back to it because they weren't, so you're parenting, right? You're saying the parents should teach the kids, but they don't know the language to do that. You know what I'm saying? So they don't have the language to have that conversation.
Then
But
let us do it.
but like what you're saying though, like there's something else you mentioned earlier, right? Is we have these apps like TikTok, and you are learning all these things. Like all these kids are not asking questions because they're like, wait, I heard about this on TikTok. Like, what's, like to ask a question like, what about this? And I'll say for myself, I'll call myself out here. I'm not from here, so I didn't really study American history like that. But the little that I did know was pretty much the whitewash version. So I will say that. So I've been learning a lot myself, and just the levels of like information that's actually out there, like about Black education, like a lot of the Black history that's been going on, right? Is coming out in a lot of like movies and like TV shows and things like that. And I'm like, is that for real? Like I don't like I watched like a lot of superhero stuff, right? And there was this HBO show called Watchmen, right? And it kind of so you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And like they talked about the basically like the Black Wall Street thing, right? And how that got destroyed. And I was like, was that even like for real? Like I was like, is this like dramatized? Like what's going on? And I go Google about it, and then it's like for real.
Very real, yeah.
I had never in my life ever heard that mentioned one time. And I'm like, that is a huge like deal. Like they literally just came through and just a bunch of people like, now you guys can be here basically.
And nobody talks about it.
Yeah, we don't know that piece. So, it's kind of like, that's where I was kind of trying to reel it back to like the TikTok aspect of it, to where at least like there are resources to get this information. Whereas in previous generations, you're kind of stuck, right? Because what you're told is what you know. So you can't really help that reaction sometimes. I mean, there's a little ignorance a bit to it as well, right? But
yeah, for sure.
You really can't help what you don't know. Because again, someone else's experience is their experience, right? And in an area where that doesn't happen or that's not part of your reality. And like how when you live your life, you kind of sometimes tunnel vision, you're just doing your own thing. So, I'm sympathetic to that degree, I guess, to where like I can see why you somehow didn't see this stuff.
No, for sure. For sure.
We hope, I guess, for the next generation, knowing that this information is out there, because now there's less deniability, right? Because you can like,
this is recorded.
Yeah, it's out there now. So like, put out there. So there's less of that to fall back on. Like that wasn't part of your life, that wasn't part of your reality, kind of thing. So you can't really fall back on that. But because of those resources and like shows and and like TikTok and everything, everyone's on. Well, most people are on TikTok. It's one of the most downloaded apps and things like that. And people are like telling these stories, like saying all these things historically. And I think that like a lot of people, you don't like a lot of achievements have also been done by people of color, right? And I'm a big believer in like role models. So I feel like there's several people who, like, you could ask like a Black kid what they want to be, right? And probably what they'll say is something that they've seen someone else like them do. So something like a football player or a basketball player, those types of things. That's why people gravitate towards those types of careers. But if you see a Black doctor, or if you see like, a female, like, for example, like a female vice president, like some people may never have considered that path as like a career option, but seeing it as a reality, I guess, like puts that, platform for people to be able to look and be like, this is a possibility. So I'm a big believer in like that role modeling aspect as well. And how that ties into the education piece and letting people see them in part of their learning, and like if you see yourself in books and things like that, you're like, oh, people can do that. That level of representation I think it also expands kids' minds to, maybe like the narrow-minded things, because people get stuck, right? You get stuck in these situations where you can't think outside of your bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes you need just some little help. And I think like teachers and education systems can have like that big responsibility, because that's an escape for a lot of children, right? A lot of students.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying too. Like, if you don't have the tools, you can trust that, or you should be able to trust that that the teacher has the tools. So I think that's my biggest thing, right? Is like, if you don't know, that's fine. Nobody's gonna fault you for not knowing. But don't try to halt this wave that I'm coming in with that's gonna help everyone, right? It's gonna help your child understand where they are in the world and how where they are in the world and their position affects their peers.
Mhm.
So, like you said, I'm definitely sympathetic to the fact that people do not know what they don't know. I'm very big on that, especially as somebody who was not like a traditional student, like very big on you don't know what you don't know. But it's also like, when you have the opportunity to figure it out, you should take that.
Mhm.
And like you said, like that's the caveat that should be on us to do, and that is on us to do. And we should be allowed to do that for sure. And as far as representation, I think that's why the scholarship is a wonderful opportunity, because that's a big part of why it was implemented. It's like representation and who you choose to represent you is such a big, like it goes beyond like basketball player, singer, which is nothing wrong with that. If that's your play, I'm all for you writing it. But I think, and even that's starting to change, because at school I made a lot of friends, because I found community and a lot of people from sports teams, because that's just how it goes sometimes. And but it was so amazing to see these people. Like, I had a friend who decided, like, because of COVID, she had more eligibility. And I had a friend who decided she didn't want to play basketball anymore, and she wanted to go focus on her master's instead. And it's so beautiful to see, like, she was like, this was an opportunity for me, but I can do something else. And I do think it's because, like, especially people who are around our age, like, they are seeing that, like, you can be anything that you want to be. And you definitely need people who, I always use this example, like when Obama became president, everybody was like, you can be who you want to be. Look at Obama. And I was like, let's be real. All of y'all are not going to be the presidents. We need to figure something else out. But that's why I'm saying, you can say you can be who you want to be. Like my pastor, he owns a business. To me, that's a successful Black man. He's very satisfied in the job that he does. He's very educated in the job that he does. And that's success. Being able to provide for your family in a comfortable way, enjoying, because I think a lot of times, like, I was talking to a freshman, he's a basketball player at our school right now, enjoying what you do. Like, if this is not what you want to do not make yourself miserable. But I feel like a lot of times Black kids from marginalized communities aren't taught that. They aren't taught that you can do what you enjoy. And that's another reason why representation matters. So like me, I know the weight that being a Black teacher is going to do, right? I know that. But it's also like, I love this job and it's what I want to do. And if I see somebody else, right, who wants to do this job too, or I know a different kid who wants to do this job too, it's doable and you can do it. And it's a job, I think it's very noble. That's just me, probably a little biased, but like, you can do it. And it doesn't have to be this like knockout, drag out of you getting up every morning, doing whatever you have to do to get here. And then like you get there and it's just like, for what? You know, why am I doing this? So like with my friend, I think she was like, I really had to ask myself, why do I want to continue playing basketball? Like what now do I have to gain from that? I gained what I needed from that and now I'm moving on. And I don't think that a lot of people from marginalized communities see that as an option, and it is. But it's also like representation and education, right? To tie it back, you got to show kids that they're in history books, that they are more than just enslaved human beings. Mm-hmm. That matters. You got it. And it doesn't just matter for them, right? It matters for people who are not a part of this community. Because if you're continuously seeing this image, that means I'm going to see myself as one thing and you're going to see me as one thing. And then then it's like, we all are contributing to this one way that everybody's seeing each other. Because if I'm only seeing successful white people, and in history, I'm only seeing white people in positions of power, in positions to change things, then what am I going to be led to believe? That this is what a person in power looks like. And this is what a person with, and it goes beyond power too. This is a person with freedom. This is what a person with freedom. This is what a person with autonomy. This is a person with like, even like that personal power. This is what they look like, and I am not that. And that goes for a multitude of things. But it's all back to education. And what are we teaching all of our children and all of our students? What are we teaching them? Are we teaching them that success looks one way, so that if they don't go to college, because that's a class thing, right? So if they don't go to college, then you're not successful. Or that you can't do something that you want to do because you don't look like the people who are doing that. So then we're going to keep letting kids fall through gaps, and we're going to keep letting the people who profit off of the students who fall through these gaps continue to profit off of them. And then the cycle continues. But if we're stopping that at when you come to school, where you feel safe, where you can get a meal, where you know people care about you, and I can put this nugget in your ear, we're gonna start helping create the human beings that we need to see change.
I like that. You worded that perfectly. You're the way you break down kind of discussion points, I think makes it easy for people to understand. And that shows because obviously you're a teacher, so you have to break down information so people can take it in easier. Just before we wrap up, I do want to touch on some of the highlights from what you did. Can you just speak a little bit to what your role in the protests and stuff that were going on, because every city had their protests, right? Happened in Colombia. Why, what your role was, and kind of like, I mean, I guess we kind of know why, kind of from what you've covered, but like if you could speak more to kind of like your experience through that whole thing.
Yeah. So me and my friend Zoe, we were just DMing, because Zoe was DMing me. She was making sure like I had posted a lot of stuff, right? Because in the middle of a pandemic, and my mom's a nurse at an assisted living facility. So like everybody else, I feel like were like people in my life were on lockdown, but we like to say we were on lockdown, because she's a nurse. Yes, Mom, they're gonna see you. Please. Okay. But so I didn't want to like do anything that would like put that in jeopardy, because my mom, it's just our mom. And so I didn't want to like jeopardize her health or anything like that. So, but I did tell Zoe, like we were just talking, and Zoe had cancer. So she's immune compromised. And so we didn't want I didn't want to do one thing, something with Zoe that would hurt Zoe or harm her. And I didn't want to do anything that would compromise my family. So, but I was like, well, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So like people need to be safe. And I was like, I saw this thing on Twitter and in St. Louis. So shout out to the activists and the pages from St. Louis. I saw this thing that was like, pick up it was like a safety kit or something like that here. And it had like sanitizer. But you know, in St. Louis, like their police it gets rough. So they have like stuff for like if you get like smoke in your eyes or something like that, or like mace or something like that, and bandages and gauze, and it was like on steroids for them. And I didn't think our police would get that far. So, but we did so in the safety bag, we had snacks, and we had hand sanitizers, and we had masks, just because, one, I don't think that, I have to think about things that I want to do. Like I like to think about longevity whenever I do anything. So I didn't want to step on the scene, because it's like my first thing I've done for like an actual protest or anything. So I didn't want to step on the scene and start organizing myself, because I felt like there were plenty of people doing that. And I honestly don't think I could handle that. But I just thought, like, teacher brain, right? How can I help and aid in the things that are already doing? And also, there were a lot of people who couldn't leave their homes. So how can we get everybody as a community involved to help the people who are taking that risk and being on the front line of things? And that's how we were able to do it. So I really got to commend Zoe, because it was just an idea that I had, and she kind of like took it and she like posted about it and all this other stuff. And she really helped me. Like, she's like, I think like you should say something, and I think you should really do it, and I can help you. And so she and her family were a very big help to me, and to my family really throughout this, because I was able to stay with Zoe while we were when we were going out and being with other people. So like we weren't bringing anything back to our family. So that was a big help. And, but yeah, so in the bags were just mask, hand sanitizer, this solution for your eyes if anything happened like that. There was a Sharpie in case anybody got arrested and they needed to write. There are a couple of like bail funds in Colombia. So there was a sheet of paper we called it the Know Your Rights paper. And it just had all the rights that you have as if you get detained and stuff like that. And it had the numbers to bail funds. And we made sure that, so people donated money, people donated supplies, like really shout out to the people who made cloth masks, because that was a big thing. And so I think what I'm really most grateful for is, one, I got to help. And I ended up protesting, of course, out there. You just feel that energy. So I was able to do that. But that's basically it, just handing out those bags. And even at events like in parks, because we quickly realized that in the summer, as people got tired of being in their houses, they wanted to congregate and things like that. So I know a couple of me and my friends, after we took some supplies down to downtown to a protest, we hit Douglas Park and we passed out bags to like the little kid. If there was an event going on, so we passed down bags to kids down there. I went to my old neighborhood, our neighborhood I used to live in Columbia, and we knocked on doors and we gave out snacks, and because a lot of like single moms and stuff like that live in that neighborhood, so we were able to give out snacks and water, Gatorade. We talked to some little kids and helped them realize, like, even though you're playing with each other, your neighbors, like, here's some of these like cute little masks you can put on, so we can keep everybody safe. So it definitely got bigger than I expected it to get. I know, like, I had so many like women's like sanitary products and a bunch of like cloth masks left over. So I know I donated them to there's a college readiness class that I took, and I know that they keep stuff like that in the classroom. So I was able to give a box of stuff to them. I still have a box of stuff I need to give away to people. And there's protests for like the things going on in Palestine right now. So I thought about reaching out to, I went to a protest for Palestine last week. And so I'm just thinking like with a lot of like Islamophobia and stuff, probably being, I'm not obviously going to see that, but I just know how the world works. I feel like there might be a lot going on. So like maybe women may be afraid to go to stores and stuff like that. So that stuff could be useful to them. So I'm thinking about just taking this stuff down to the next one, if there's going to be a next one, and just giving it to like if they know a family who needs it, or if there's somebody in the community who needs it. So I do want to keep doing the safety bags. I actually want to start a nonprofit. That's a whole other thing, where I just give, like we just give out care packages, just seasonal care packages. That's what I want to do, like long term. Like this was not like the goal all along, but just seeing how much people need things, that's kind of like what's next for me as far as like advocacy work goes. I never say activism because I feel like that's different than I feel like that's like in my head, that's like different than what I'm doing. What I think I want my role to be and my place to be in, just like making sure I'm doing my part to like help aid justice warriors. It's like like if they tell me like there's this family who needs this, then I want to be able to go back to a team of people that I've created and be like, hey, this family needs this. We need to figure out resources, because that's another thing with the scholarship and just being in Columbia for a while. I really know a lot of places to get a lot of things, whether that be Love Inc., the Love Seat, Columbia College. Like I know a lot of the people that I met there, especially on the staff and administration, helped me a lot this summer. Like whether it was they've got a Sam's Club account and mom. Yeah. Oh my God.
That's funny. It's okay.
But yeah, so yeah, whether it be like that, I just really do want to keep doing my part in aiding the work that's being done. And the beautiful thing about Columbia, which is also why I'm on the fence about like after this 4 years is up, do I want to stay, right? Because everybody's hope is that I'll stay. So, but that's also another thing about leaving, is just like, even if I do want to do work from in other places, in other cities, I think that people here genuinely do care a lot. And I think that's the one thing I can really say about our city, is that I genuinely feel like there are more people here than not who do want to see change and who do want to work towards a more inclusive and community, and who do want to see the liberation of marginalized people. And that's a feeling and that's an energy. And I always get it here whenever I want to do something. It's nice to know exactly who I want to call and who will help me do those things. And so I definitely think I want to keep doing that and keep aiding and whoever needs justice. I don't care who it's for. I don't care who it's against. But I definitely want to keep doing my part to make sure that everyone who is a part of a marginalized community is getting the resources that they need. So I guess like more so the role that I found throughout it was being a connector. And I think it aligns with everything else in my life. Whether it be like my Jesus walk, I think that's a source. Like we always talk about how God's a source. And I think that if you can have any job in this thing, as somebody who identifies as a Christian, it's just like, how do you aid people and how do you help people? That's our biggest thing. And so even from that aspect, it just aligns super perfectly with like life. As an educator, that's my job. My job is to advocate and my job is to connect. It doesn't matter who I'm advocating for and what I need to connect them to, but it's my job to know how to do that. And so just overall, that's what I've decided my purpose within social justice is. And I think that I found other people who throughout that work who also align with that job as a connector. Because it's so important. It's so important for our people who are on the front lines and who are marginalizing these things and who are, I'm not marginalizing, who are organizing, sorry, and putting their bodies and their safety on the line. I think it's not too much to ask of ourselves for them to say, hey, Ty, like there's this family who needs this, go, can you just do that? And I'm like, yeah, that's not too much to ask when you're quite literally putting your well-being in danger for this. And I think there's a lot of people, I won't say there's enough because there's never enough. Like if you feel like that's your purpose, then definitely do that. But I just knew for me, I don't think that is that's my niche or that's my thing within this. I definitely think over the summer, that's something else that more people who are becoming aware had to realize is that everybody has a place in this, but you kind of just got to figure out what yours is. And organizing and stuff like that was not it's not something that felt natural to me. And not because I don't think, like, I think I'm okay at speaking, and I think I could obviously speak to a large crowd of people. It wasn't that, it just didn't feel like, I think for me, I'm just like, if I have a second thought about something, then it's probably not for me. Like, I'm a go with your gut, go with your intuition type of person. So this is kind of like, when I got to do this, like when I got to go in Walmart and like pick out snacks and put everything in bags and stuff like that, that felt very natural to me. Like that felt like, it felt like I was doing what I needed to be doing. And so that's definitely something I want to continue to do for the community. Is like I said, I think I want to make seasonal ones, but I haven't ironed out the details, so I won't take up too much more of your time talking about this. But yeah.
No. So my next question actually was going to be, and my final question, I'll let you go to, it's getting kind of late. Is there any way people can help with this? Because is it like a fund? Like, how can people, if someone's listening and they're like, oh, that's something I'd be involved in, is there a way to like donate or chip in some way? Like,
because I haven't, I know I want the name of my nonprofit to be Ty and Friends, and the idea would be to just like have different groups of people who like would agree to be like friends. And so I am weird about money. I don't know, like when somebody's like, I want to donate this, I'm like, or you could go buy that and just give it to me. I love that for us. But that would be that's basically what I would be asking people. It's just like, if you know somebody in need, and if you know, or just like if you can donate knowledge, or you can donate, like, for example, now I have to figure out how you make something an actual nonprofit. That's like my next step. That's my biggest step, because my best friend owns a business. So she was like, yeah, Ty, like if you're gonna ask people for their money, like you gotta make that official. And so I was like, oh, okay, you're probably right. It's probably getting borderline illegal here. So that's my next thing. It's just to by the end of June, I want to make it an official nonprofit. And then after that, the thing I've been working on, the most recent thing we've worked on, like me and just my friends, are is I want to do a back to school, like, I don't know if I want to call it a bash, I don't really know, but a back to school event. And I'm on the fence about whether I want to have it like carnival style thing, but I don't know if I'm gonna be all the way there yet just because of COVID, but it probably will just be a drive-through thing where just kind of like drive through and we give you school supplies and like backpacks and stuff like that. So that's really what I need is school supplies, school supplies, school supplies. Because that's what's in my room right now. I have to figure out how to fit all of these donations of school supplies in my room. Yeah, so that'll be probably the beginning of August.
Okay.
So,
But yeah,
that's it.
if so, I don't know when this will go live yet, but when it does go live, if I have better information, I'll definitely like link it in a bio or post or things like that.
Yeah, and people can just hit me up through whatever Instagram.
What's your handle, just so that everyone knows?
It's just my name. It's like, hold on, let me check before I get to telling stories. Because I changed it. Well, not recently, but I did, and it's not what I thought it was. It's just Tyus, and then it's like a period, Monroe.
Okay. Well, that seems like a good closing point. If you guys hear something that you like and you want to contribute, because that was a lot of information and that was a lot of good. And if you want to help Ty, if you want to just, kind of feel like you do your part, and, everyone has a lot of, you want to know where you fit, but this is a small way that you can help assist Ty in whatever. It doesn't have to be about Black lives. There's several struggles that are going on, but you see that she has like different paths and different people that she's trying to help there, as well as students as well.
Mhm.
But this is kind of wrapping it up, and thank you for whatever platform if you're watching this. Thank you. If you're listening, thank you as well. And thanks to Ty for agreeing to do this with me, because I like meeting new people and hearing, how the kind of work they're doing and where they're at and what they're trying to achieve and stuff like that. So again, thanks for doing that.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, and that'll be the end of it, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.